The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised. The Full Melt.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
Give me a break. The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
Back into it for another week. It's the Full Melt Show. Live from the PetPain.com studios. That's right, the big news today. I don't know, I don't know. Saw this story about Cindy Brady. And I'll talk about it a little bit later on in the program. I'm just going to say. This story caught my eye. And, you know, anytime you start thinking about old television shows and stuff, you know, you start thinking about 70s sitcoms, and the Brady Bunch is right up there amongst them. I mean, I grew up with the Brady Bunch and syndication. I was probably, watching it, in its... Did we ever watch it at night? When it was on regular TV, I don't think I ever watched it. I think I caught the Brady Bunch always in syndication. It was one of those shows that when it was on, it was on multiple channels at the same time. They did this with a lot of 70s sitcoms. I mean, when I get home after school, the TV was the babysitter. It was one of those latchkey kids. And we'd get back from school and hang out watching the TV until the parents got home, and then it was like, did you get your chores done, and did you do your homework, and it's time for you to eat, make the table, all that kind of stuff. But you turn the TV on, and when you start clicking around, you might watch something like the Brady Bunch on one channel and then click to another channel, clink, 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 because we had the old rotary dial TV set, clink, clink, clink. And then you could watch the same sitcom on a different channel and probably switch to a third channel on the UHF where you used to have the UHF dial and you spin it all the way over there and find it again. Same thing with, what was that, Alice, the restaurant? You ever seen that thing? I don't know. A lot of these old 70s shows. But so it's kind of a homey, warm feeling when you think about some of these old sitcoms that, play endlessly in rerun. The Brady Bunch, probably paramount amongst them with Gilligan's Island. And so Cindy Brady today in a published book, published article, I think this came out of Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Where these Australian authors get their stories from is beyond me, because sometimes it seemed outlandish. And who the heck in Australia has a connection to the girl that used to play Cindy Brady? But we'll talk about that in just a bit. Leading up to the program, I was talking to this guy on the phone, and I've known this guy for a while now, better part of a decade. And so this person came to me long ago with some information that I was just like, oh, really? You're going down that way? And I'm going to be very, nondescript about this because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet. But when I'm able to let the cat out of this bag, and I won't until I've got all the corners pinned down. And this guy is a little bit nutty, but he's not telling an untruth. But he tells me this story that if I was able to reveal it to you is epic in proportion. I mean, once I'm able to get this story on the air and you understand its totality, there will be some people that are angry. You might be dumbfounded by yourself. You might go, what? Seriously? But there's this gigantic story, and it's been brewing for a while now. For years, I've been getting glimpses of it and pieces of it, and sometimes the same pieces over and over again, emphatically. But as I've been able to nail down each little piece, each little corner, and I'll tell you, in the last few days, I've nailed down many more pieces than I've been able to nail down in, several years. And I've always been telling this person, look, why don't you just tell this story on the air? And he's like, oh, I'm not ready yet. He's never ready to tell it publicly. But he always wants to tell me little bits and pieces of this, as best he can recount them at the time, because he seems to get rather, I don't know. I think he's obsessed with the scenario, personally. But I would be too were I him, and were he saying, what he was saying was to be true. I just want to put it this way. The best way I can sum this up without saying it, and to make a little more sense to you, I think, is if you knew what was being done behind your back, it wouldn't just be your jaw that was on the ground. Because this kind of information that I'm getting, and I'm just doing independent verification about bits and pieces of this story as we go. Because as a journalist, I can't tell somebody's story, especially if it's as giant as this story is. And I'm telling you, this is an epic story. If I ever get the chance, I'm going to find a way to sell this story to Hollywood because it's that big. I mean, it's a piece of Americana history in a way that you've never been told, never seen, never understood, and are a willing participant to without knowing. It has that kind of impact. It's almost all that I can really say about that subject. But I've been working on this for a while now, and I'm just saying in the long run, this story's going to come out. And it seems to be sooner rather than later. And it's about time that it does because this is an old story. But it seems to have all kinds of hallmarks of truth to it. With regards to names and facts and dates and times and records. There's all kinds of ways to verify all the pieces to this story. And I've done that a lot already, verify the little independent pieces, through multiple sources. But I still can't let the cat out of the bag yet. It's just, the bun's not done baking in the oven yet. And admittedly, the bun will taste a lot better when it's finished baking. But I don't think you may not like this bun. This bun might not be something that chews or swallows so well. But it is something that I'm working on for you. And I don't know, it'll probably end up being a radio story before it ends up being a book. And I think it would even be better portrayed on film because the characters in this story are familiar ones. And the story's told in a way, like I say, that turns, what seems to be perception of reality on its head. So I just had to say that a little bit because it seems like a couple times a year or even more often, I want to talk about this story, but I just can't do it. It wouldn't be responsible yet. So get ready for that giant bomb because it's going to get dropped. And I'm thinking that it's definitely going to be something that is Hollywood material. So there's been some things happening in the news lately, and amongst them, I also want to get to a little bit later on in the program after we talk about Cindy Brady, because that's Cindy Brady grew weed. It's just so weird. You remember, if you're a follower of this program or if you've listened to some of the past shows, when we started going daily with this program, I had on Alex Whiteplume. Alex is from a tribe in the Dakotas. Wounded Knee. They called it greasy grass, the Indian name for the Civil War term. Or is it Civil War? American Indian War? I don't know. So, everybody, the history nuts are all bashing me over the head right now. You idiot. But this is where he lives. And the Indian tribe there has been trying to grow marijuana, hemp, on their lands. This is really, it's classically known as hemp because really the variety that he was planning to grow there grew indigenous, kind of grew along the riverbanks in the area. But this is, as many Indian tribes are on the reservation, poor people. Not many economic opportunities, a lot of problems with especially alcohol abuse, but there's other abuse that goes on. It seems that methamphetamine has weaned its way into the Indian community. A lot of addiction problems. These are, always associated with people who are unhappy with their lives. And I'd say you've got a whole tank of them on Indian reservations where there isn't much opportunity going around in the way of jobs, economic development, upward mobility. The Indian tribes have been left in the breeze for a long time. The only thing that they've had going for them is this gaming business, which in some parts of the country has been, tremendously prosperous for Indian tribes. Florida amongst them. It seems that the Indian tribes here in Michigan have a branch into the casino industry. But these people in the Dakotas, Alex White Plume and the tribe that he represents, the Oglala Sioux Nation, we're trying to just create some economic development on their tribal lands. And traditionally, tribal lands have been labeled as sovereign, at least now. Maybe traditionally wasn't a good word for it. They've managed to, iron out some of history's inequalities to some degree and be recognized as sovereign nations. They are sovereign nations within the territories of the United States. So they get to create their own laws. And Alaska's got some particularly unusual Indian laws as it revolves around tribal law. Whether or not the United States has any applicable availability to go in and enforce anything, U.S. law or state law, in these territories. Because, again, they're sovereign. They can determine their own laws. They have their own policing agencies, independent of the United States. So, Alex White Plume, as the story went in that episode that we did, was having a problem back in, since, 2003? Or I don't know. It's been a while. They've been trying to plant this hemp, and the federal government kept coming and taking it down, and then eventually they sued him. And, instead of taking him, not just sued him, but, threatened him with criminal charges and said, unless you sign this agreement that says you're not going to ever again grow anything cannabis-related or hemp-related on your tribal lands again, we're going to throw the book at you and you're going to end up going to prison for cultivating marijuana in large quantities. And so they signed the agreement. Now they're trying to revoke it because recently you noticed that the federal government made this decision that, all right, as long as Colorado and Washington and these other states are doing this business with recreational marijuana, as long as you in the tribes obey by the same kinds of confines as, have strict regulation, and here's the details about what that regulation needs to include or prevent, mitigate, then you can go ahead and do the same thing on your tribal lands. And so there's some news today that I wanted to talk about with regards to, economic opportunity in the Dakotas again. And Alex White Plume is not mentioned in this story, but it has to do with economic opportunity on American Indian land and marijuana. A story coming from the Associated Press, as I'm going to read it to you from the Star Tribune. So that and more coming up this hour, all day, today, on the Full Melt Show. Don't go away.
You're getting the Full Melt.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
Got something to hide? Canalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Canalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Canalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at canalock.com. Visit Canalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
Get the beach bong ready for sunshine and sandy beaches in McGrill, Jamaica this November as the High Times Cannabis Cup moves from Amsterdam to the Caribbean. Your trip starts with the absolute best rates on airfare, hotel, events, and all your Cannabis Cup travel needs at TravelCannabisCup.com. Come stay with us, relax in the sun, play in the sand, and smoke down with the cool people, man. Get to the High Times Jamaica Cannabis Cup. Best travel prices right now at TravelCannabisCup.com.
This summer, discover the one place where your family will create unforgettable memories. Welcome to Jurassic World. Welcome to Jurassic World. Welcome to Jurassic World. Welcome to Jurassic World. Rated PG-13.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
I'm in love with an angel. Heaven forbid.
Hey, you can hear us here normally on Monday through Friday from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you get an opportunity, Facebook and Twitter links are at the top of the FullMelt.com's webpage. Follow and like us there. Also, iTunes. Easy to subscribe to us up on iTunes. Please go there and do that because it's the easiest way to get our programming every day, kind of automatically. So I was thinking during the commercial break that it might be, I have to throw this in about the epic story thing, and then I'll move on to City Brady. So I have to tell you this, that not only are the people and the businesses, I'll say, associated with this epic tale that I can't tell you yet. Not are they known to you, but I don't know how they would respond independently. Excuse me. I don't know how they would respond to this story. People get defensive, especially when you're starting to talk about revenue streams and money and capitalism and all that stuff. And this is one of the reasons why I hesitate to even bring this story up, up in the long run. And it's gonna happen because I'll reveal to you this part of it. Some of this stuff is wrapped up in court testimony. Some of it's wrapped up under court seal, and some of this information has been leaked. People have been threatened. This is a big story. National implications, political figures involved. It's of Harry Anslinger type gravity. And that's where I'm going to put a stop to it. I'm going to put a cork in it before I let too much go. So, that being said, this story caught my eye today, and I did put it up on the Full Melt's Facebook page. If you didn't know, I told you we had a Facebook page where you can like us. I posted this story there earlier today. And so this story actually comes, I saw the story, FoxNews.com had this story. But it's reprinted with permission, apparently, to somebody from, it's news.com.au, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's an Australian AU. That's what I think it stands for. It's like their country. The .tvs is like Tuvalu. That's the island nation that's almost sinking. They got nothing going on there, so they they got their own .com for their little island nation country, and a lot of people use it for the .tv ending, so they can say pot.tv or buymycar.tv. I don't know. The TV thing works with some of those brands, and so the story goes as this: Susan Olsen, who played Cindy on the Brady Bunch, was an illegal pot grower. The 53-year-old actress told news.com.au that she and her then husband grew it hydroponically. She didn't reveal in the story, by the way, when she did this. Obviously, she was married at the time. I have never really enjoyed smoking it. It makes me paranoid, she said. But it was my husband's idea. It was really fascinating, and I've always been into gardening. And it's such a complicated, wonderfully fascinating plant. But that was one of the reasons why I did leave my husband, because it just bothered me too much that we were doing something so illegal. It's probably a good idea, Cindy, because it does not sound like she was involved in the medical market or in one of the licensed markets. This sounds like it happened before there were any licensed markets. Who knows? She did not say. Olsen also revealed that she and Mike Lukeland, who played Bobby, used to kiss in the doghouse when they were 9, and that they were paid very little money for the show. That does not surprise me. Hollywood's taken advantage of child actors for a very long time. Mickey Rooney chiefly involved in defending a lot of child actors. Heck, Mickey Rooney was part of the Our Gang series in, The Little Rascals back in the 30s. Did they even start in the 20s? I know they were there in the 30s through the Depression. They kind of represented that part of Americana. But he defended a lot of these child actors because they did get so poorly paid and were, often abused. Not physically, but, they were taken out of schooling situations. They weren't getting properly schooled. They weren't being paid very much. They were getting famous. People wanted to talk to them. A lot of these child actors, committed suicide. Look at the Buffy and Jody from, what is it, Family Affair was the series in the very early 70s. Like right when they were switching to color. Gilligan's Island era. Gilligan's Island was technically in the late 60s. But, because they had the black and white shows and then they had the color shows. And that was the same way this was. Brady Bunch, the same way. Black and white Brady Bunch, then color Brady Bunch. Kind of the same transition as we made to HD TV here in the States. But, so the ex-child star confirmed that Eve Plum, also known as Jan Brady, and Maureen McCormick, who is Marsha Brady, do not get along at all. Marsha! Stay away from my bag, you bitch! I think it's kind of petty, she says. From day to day with these two, I have been always been in the middle. And now it's at the point where there isn't even a desire to communicate through me. So, I think this really goes into other stuff related to the show that isn't pot related, but I just have to read the rest because it's not very much longer. It's all really petty, but if your feelings get hurt when you're really young, some people carry it with them. Or maybe to them, moving on means moving away. Maybe to them, moving on means moving away. Olsen also confessed that although the kids were aware patriarch Robert Reed, Mike Brady, was gay, he never wanted them to know. She's quoted as saying here at the end of the article, he never had any intentions of coming out of the closet, and I think he might have been mortified to know that we knew. And apparently they did. It's kind of hard not to be on set with people because these are very long production schedules, usually, especially when you get into the sitcom realm, because you'll come in and you'll shoot several shows in a day, especially these ones that were shot before live studio audiences, the Brady Bunch not amongst them. They put in the laugh tracks on the Brady Bunch. Same way with Gilligan's Island. There were some, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days. A lot of those kind of shows were shot before studio audiences. Kind of live on a stage. These other shows didn't have that advantage, but I guess I don't even know why I went down that road. But what I'm saying is this. When you're working closely with these people and there's these large production schedules, it's really difficult not to get into other people's personal business. And that's probably why Jan and Marsha, from, their TV names, didn't get along so well, Maureen and Eve. They just really didn't like each other. And there was some kissy going on between Marsha and Greg. And there was some kissy going on between Cindy and Bobby. Jan didn't like any of this stuff. I mean... It goes on. And if you've ever seen any of the series, kind of the spin-offs that tried to follow in the 70s and 80s of the Brady Bunch, because they made several attempts at it. There are a couple of Brady Bunch, Brady Bunch, and Gilligan's Island, too. They did the same thing with Gilligan's Island. Tried to revive them in movies and tried to spin off from them, and they never succeeded. But they did have some TV sitcoms that did give it a couple tries, and one of them made it like a season and a half or 2 seasons. The Brady Bunch when they were older, these corny things that were put together, contrived to try and reassemble the cast, because that's what everybody really wanted to see, is these cast members maybe in their modern day lives. But, they wouldn't live together and really function the way they did on these shows. They were really contrived and strange. But, Eve, my point about that was that Eve Plum, during some of these times, didn't participate in some of the part of either Marsha or Jan was being played by another person. And I always wondered why that was, because, those guys were central focus points in that sitcom. And so when they were doing these revival shows or these, try to spin off later in their years about this, seeing them together was kind of important to the viewer. If the part's being played by somebody, you can't do this like a soap opera in the 60s or the early 70s where the part of John is being played by and Patrick Kennedy today. No. Those shows were live, so they didn't have any choice in the matter. I think they've even done this with some of the tape shows where cast members on these soap operas would disappear for a while. But so Cindy Brady grew weed when she got married. And, you know, she obviously got divorced. I don't know if she's remarried. I certainly would like to get her on the program. It seems like that she, you know, it would be possible. Cindy's only a few years older than me. You know, she's got less than 5 on me. So I can certainly relate to her and the age and the day. I can certainly understand her fascination with growing and the intricacies and how she quotes it, wonderfully fascinating plant. Such a complicated, wonderfully fascinating plant. I think that, and this all relates back to my big epic story too. In the long run, it really does. You won't see that connection until I can later tell it, obviously. But as the curtain is drawn back and what I know about this is able to be revealed. Because I don't know, you know, as far as I know, the only other ones that know about the epic story that I'm aware of are the central players in it. Because remember, I told you there's a sealed court case about this. You know, sealed federal documents, which some of which have been leaked by the very people that sealed them. Oh, it's so big. But when you pull back the curtain and you start to see characters from your mainstream growing up reveal to you that at some point during the course of their lives, they've been involved with or had a central focus around marijuana, it kind of changes your perspective a bit, doesn't it? It shows you how really pervasive and deep culturally cannabis has been in the United States. You know, before this was made prohibited, and certainly after. Yeah, I just want to open that doorway and walk down it because it's such a perfect lead into that whole epic story. But I can't tell you the story. Oh, it grinds my goat. I would hope that sometime within the next 6 months, I should be able to reveal it to you in its entirety. I'm just going to have to play that one by ear. I've been hoping for a while that it would just go away and that some of it wasn't true. But the more I investigate it, the more it seems that this is more likely than not. And more facts, as they come forth, seem to be verified as facts and not conjecture or, you know, a bunch of mumbo-jumbo made up by goofy people. This whole thing about marijuana and cannabis, as I'm seeing it from perspective, really was planned. There are certain things about markets and economics that are driven by forces that are beyond, you know, individual control. You know, right down to the split and the division between capitalism and communism. I mean, there are different functions and reasons by which you would institute these kinds of policies. And many would say that one turns into the other. That communism, the ultimate extreme form of communism is capitalism, and then vice versa. The ultimate extreme form of capitalism is communism, that it's cyclical in some way. You know, I guess you can resort to your own review of history as to whether or not that statement is true. But I can tell you this, that inside of each of those market systems, certain forces are in control. But when you start talking about the investment of capital, and it's not just investment of your capital, but that of other people, other businesses, other companies, with legal ties to, you know, returning investment to investors, returning on that investment. ROI. Where's it at, buddy? I made the investment. Where's my return? I mean, that's the only reason they've made that investment. Were it not for the return, the investment would never get made. And so when you're talking about what now is emerging as a multi-billion dollar industry in this country, with only 2 of 4 states leading the way, and you know the other 2 following quickly, and then others eyeing to get on. I mean, we talk about this every day on this program. We talk about it with Pennsylvania and Ohio and Illinois and New York and Georgia and Louisiana and Texas and Florida. I mean, they're piling on, even in very conservative states. So the industry is growing from already a $1 billion level in its infancy as a capitalist adventure, as a non-black market, a fully books on board business. And that changes the recipe, doesn't it? I mean, it's not just the recipe that the people who enjoy and celebrate cannabis for what it is, because it is an amazing plant. I mean, I can think of no other plant off the top of my head, and I've been around a long time. I know bumped into a lot of plants in my day. Probably not as many as I'd like to be exposed to. I keep getting exposed to new stuff in the botany field all the time. Most recently, a strange plant that grows in some African country, or I don't know, it's not around here. It's a fruit-bearing tree that these grape-like globes grow right on the bark of the tree. And they're celebrated as a fruit, and they seem to be rather, I don't know why they haven't, where you can't go to Walmart and pick some of these up. But there's fascinating stuff in the plant world. And so for something that's this interesting, this intricate, this usable from so many facets, when you start looking at this as a business, as a fully above board legitimate business, it turns its head on the prohibition table. Now, I only grew up with prohibition. I'd say most of you did too. Probably all of you grew up only in prohibitionary times. Not too many people that I bump into remember pre-prohibition cannabis. I mean, you got to be pretty old. And then you might not care or even remember. But so, when you look at this as something that you're familiar with, as something that you grew up with from a prohibition standpoint, and then you look at it as a business, and you start to examine why people would want to make it illegal in the first place, what would be the incentive behind that? Aside from the things that you've been told, they all tie into the bigger story. That more to come on that later. Picking up on the other side with more cannabis news.
Full melt.
Got something to hide? Cannalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Cannalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Cannalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at Cannalock.com. Visit Cannalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
You know, it's not easy out there, but it can be easier. And when it comes to medical marijuana in Michigan and chronic pain management, Dr. Bob Townsend, renowned for his patient advocacy and deep understanding of how patients and medical marijuana certifications fit together, makes it his hallmark to educate and provide the best holistic treatment for your condition. His knowledgeable staff makes you feel warm and welcome, and Dr. Bob makes you feel well. With locations across the state in Cadillac and Gaylord, Kalamazoo, Marquette, Mount Pleasant, Muskegon, Saginaw, Traverse City, you can't beat the convenience and feeling you get knowing you have someone on your side that cares. Denali Healthcare is on the web at denalihealthcaremi.com. Get answers to your holistic health questions or schedule an appointment now by calling 989-339-4464. Chronic pain management and holistic health answers is what they do. It's all they do. DenaliHealthcareMI.com. Get your certification and peace of mind now by making an appointment with Dr. Bob Townsend at 989-339-4464.
Get the beach bong ready for sunshine and sandy beaches in McGrill, Jamaica this November as the High Times Cannabis Cup moves from Amsterdam to the Caribbean. Your trip starts with the absolute best rates on airfare, hotel, events, and all your Cannabis Cup travel needs at travelcannabiscup.com. Come stay with us, relax in the sun, play in the sand, and smoke down with the cool people, man. Get to the High Times Jamaica Cannabis Cup. Best travel prices right now at travelcannabiscup.com.
It's the Full Melt radio show. Are you going? No, in November to Jamaica. Are you going to Negril? I think I'm going to try and plan on it. Would it be great if we could do a live broadcast from Negril, Jamaica for the first ever Jamaican High Times Cannabis Cup? It's the World Cannabis Cup. I mean, it is the big kahuna. I'm just wondering if it can eclipse Denver. Because Denver is such a weight. It is Cannabis Central USA, Denver, Colorado. The gravity of the density of marijuana business there is immense. I've never been to Colorado. I mean, I've never been to California. But it's, they've got some, law issues there to iron out yet. Cannabis, from a legal standpoint, isn't there yet in California. They keep trying. And I would hold California up as an example to why, if you're trying to get this done in your state, like Michigan's trying to legalize now, Ohio's trying to do both, legal and medical, at the same stretch. Some other states just trying to do a very limited form of medical. Pennsylvania, a fairly conservative, pretty red state, solidly red there in Pennsylvania, putting forth a very comprehensive marijuana program from a medical standpoint. They're not doing like other states are with this cannabis oil and only limited to a couple of patients. So if you're trying to get this done in those places, hold up California as an example of why not to splinter. I think the guy that said it best is Keith Stroop from Normal. When I asked him to come on the program one day about a topic, I think we were talking about Ohio. And the idea that they've got that big grow planned out there. Boy, that's a juggernaut. I wasn't going to talk about that, but I have to for a second. Let's just examine this for a minute. Because it's changing now. It's evolving. So is the thing here in Michigan. But as it relates to the bigger picture, the giant grow that they have, the Big 10 grow plan, the monopoly plan, they call it, quote unquote, monopoly, putting people in favor of certain regulation and enshrining that into the Constitution is not a favorable thing. And here's what's changed. I think I did kind of touch on this last week, but I've got to bring it up again because it's really notable and important. Inside, I'm being told from inside sources, and there are not just one, but several inside sources telling me that the people that put together Responsible Ohio, that are behind the big monopoly plan there, not only are they following in the footsteps, as other reporters have noted, that they did with the casino gaming there, because Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and also a guy who has significant investment in Detroit, amongst them is this brand new big Red Wings arena being built. There's an entire center being built right now in downtown Detroit to replace the old Joe Louis Arena. It's always had nosebleed seats there at the Joe. I never liked that arena for some reason. People celebrate the Joe, but I say if there's nosebleed seats, give me a better seat. You can't get a better thing than they got planned in Detroit for the Red Wings. And this new stadium and arena that's, going to have multi-purposes and, there's other buildings and stuff going in. It's a significant investment for a city that just came out of bankruptcy, let's put it that way. Dan Gilbert, the same guy, this, billionaire. He's got to be a billionaire by now, doesn't he? He's not just a multimillionaire. Connections and ties into big money, Dan Gilbert. A very controversial guy, in fact. But Dan... what Why did I bring up Dan Gilbert now? See, I got lost on the Dan Gilbert. Oh, I've set my own trap for myself. Ohio, Responsible Ohio. So he's got some interest in this. And this whole business about marijuana in Ohio with this big grow monopoly, Dan Gilbert, the kind of the significance that he plays as a role in this is not so much with the marijuana investment in this state, in Ohio, but in the casino gaming that preceded it. And this is the model that the people behind Responsible Ohio want to take forth, because they did the same thing with casino gaming. There's 4 casinos in Ohio. They're enshrined into the Constitution. Nobody else gets to have a casino, just these 4 casinos. And 2 of them are run by Gilbert, and 2 of them are run by the other company that he worked with to get the ballot petition passed that allowed them to exist. And so they're doing this same model. And Ohio, the legislators have been drawn to the point, and probably by some of the people involved in some of these other petition drives that don't like the Responsible Ohio plan, have been drawn into this from the standpoint of, look, don't you think that it's a bad idea to allow big business, big investments to come in and tinker with the Ohio Constitution, the state constitution, the thing that sets all authority and guides for the rest of authority and jurisprudence in the state, to tinker with that very foundation of your government, with special interest, big money, who can pull this off just because they've got enough cash to make it happen. If you got money talks, man. These political things are funded by money. And the courts and others, they've only made it more so that way. It needs to be drawn out because money corrupts. So I think anytime you got a lot of money involved in politics, you're talking about corruption. You're talking about subverting the point of having a democratic government where the people are electing representatives who vote your favor. And they end up, completely running their campaigns for the big businesses rather than the big people. And so they're trying to say to the legislature, look, and the legislature's agreed with them and is putting forth legislation that likely will pass very quickly, that it's going to upend Responsible Ohio's big petition gathering campaign. And so the people who are behind the money in Responsible Ohio are now all fighting. This is the inside story that I'm getting from a couple of sources. I really don't want to report it as news yet, though. I'm just going to say that my inside sources are telling me this is what's going on, that there's this fighting, this infighting happening, and that there may be some lawsuits being drawn up as we speak, getting filed over their investment in RO, and that maybe they're pulling some of that investment money back out or demanding it back. Because as it turns out, these legislators are trying to say, we're not going to allow you to change the Ohio Constitution so easily. That you'll under this proposed legislation, which if they get it passed, will go before a voters' referendum. It's a legislative-driven referendum that will be put before the voters in a ballot form in the same election cycle as Responsible Ohio would be getting their votes to get their bill passed. Remember, this is the same kind of bill as they did with the casinos. Big money behind it, big advertising campaigns in all the major cities. They'll get this done. They're going to probably win. That Responsible Ohio has gathered enough signatures to get on the ballot in the fall. This year, not next year, this year. And I think they've got enough money left, and this is what's debatable yet because I don't know all of this information quite yet. I know some of it, but I can't. Again, it's still not news yet. But the big question is, do they have enough money left, absent the other people who've pulled out of this investment or trying to pull out of the investment, assuming that's what's going on, assuming that part of the story is true? They probably still may have enough money or may not have enough money yet to run the campaign politically, on the television and the radio and, running ads to get people to go vote for it. And earlier I mentioned, Alan St. Pierre and Keith Stroop from Normal, who've both been on records, particularly Keith Stroop, saying that, look, if that's the only thing you got to work with in Ohio, since they don't have medical or legal, and the object here of our organization, its chief and principal goal, is to get it legalized. Who cares if there's a monopoly involved? People aren't going to jail anymore. And I think most of America would agree with me on that point alone. But in Ohio, there's this contention about, but the beneficiaries of this and the restrictions surrounding it, so limiting it strictly to them, should not be handed out and enshrined in the Constitution of the state of Ohio. And so the legislators are saying, if you're going to win your ballot petition, we're going to have a referendum, assuming that the legislature puts this forth on the ballot, and it seems as if that's where they're going. That's where they're likely going to do. The voters in Ohio this fall will have a choice on the ballot. Can you vote for marijuana or against it in their Big 10 grow operation? And again, Keith Stroop and the people from Normal are saying, yes, if that's all you got to work with, stop people from going to jail, vote it in. The hitch to that is this. If that other bill that they're going to put on the ballot now from the legislative end, because the thing that Responsible Ohio did was gather signatures. It's a citizens initiative. It's a petition drive. It's a ballot petition that they submit to the state. I think if it's like Michigan, the legislators can either act on it or not. And if they don't, then it goes on the ballot. The legislators are doing this on their own, putting this on the ballot. Much like Michigan recently did with their, hey, we got to raise money for the roads thing. We're going to put this up to the voters. We don't want to risk our own necks with raising your taxes. Do you want to raise your own taxes? What do you want to do? Voters of Michigan said no, but the legislature put that up on the ballot, and that's what the legislature in Ohio is going to do. They're going to put the same bill on the ballot. It says, hey, if you vote for this bill and it gets passed, it will become law. And this bill says that that you can't do what Responsible Ohio is doing all in one sweep. That you first must pass and this will trump their law, even if they get it voted in. And this is why the people behind Responsible Ohio are pissed. I mean, they're fuming mad about this, that legislators would do this to them, because this is all big money. These guys all know each other. This is infighting amongst friends over pot in Ohio. Go figure. So they're trying to say that you've got to first suspend this notion that says you cannot name special people and enshrine it in the Constitution with a voter initiative without first suspending this rule, which bans it. So you could, let's say you wanted to, I don't know, because they're saying, look, you could do this with anything. You could make anything legal that way and run an industry around it. And they're damn right. So why don't we just do prostitution that way? Hell, why don't we just legalize murdering? I'm just saying, extreme example, but if they wanted to do it this way, they probably could do it. And it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea at all to let big business run government. Government sets the rules under which business survives, and they have to work hand in hand to make sure that business can go. But when you start subverting the rule of government with big business, then you've got the chicken guard in the hen house, and all things go awry. And so it's a good idea that they're watching this like this. But in the long run, if they pass both these bills and both of them, or if voters vote both of these bills in, not bills, but ballot questions, if they vote them both in, if they pass both of them, one will supersede the other. So even though RO got their thing passed and it would legalize marijuana in the way it's described there with this monopoly situation, the other bill would trump it and say, no. Now you've got to go, if you want to do this, now you're going to have to go and run 2 more ballot initiatives. I think, maybe a lawyer would disagree with me, but I think they would have to do 2 more. They would first have to suspend the first rule with a single ballot petition by itself, suspend the ban that they just passed, and then go back and name who is going to be in it and then get it done again. So you'd have to do 2 petition drives. And I think because this is running parallel with what the legislators are going to put up, would make it 3 for this go. So they would win this ballot petition and then win the election, but then lose to the other ballot question, and then have to run 2 more to get their wishes done. And by that time, the other people that are waiting till 2016 during the presidential election cycle, when people are much more likely to show up at the polls, and it will be much less tipped towards whoever was, called in to the special election on an off presidential year, on an off gubernatorial year. When they're just doing other smaller issues, local issues, just things like that. Calling in a major state question in an election cycle like that is rough going, and it's very easy to skew with advertising. So the guy that does the most advertising at those special elections gets to have his way, or the people that tend to show up at those elections are going to decide that question. So it's a very interesting thing that's happening in Ohio. And I say there are some winners and some losers already in that battle, and it's changing all the time. Now, I didn't want to get out of the show here today without looking at something that's kind of important. What happened there? Something stopped. Jeez. I don't know what happened with the timeline. There's something going on with the automation here that is not normal. It seems as though, what does this say? Yeah, something's not right with that timeline. What is going on there? I don't know. Sometimes this computer drives me insane. The whole show is run by computer. And if something goes weird, there isn't much you can do other than go, okay, something weird happened. Something weird happened. What I'm going to do is time this out because I think we should. Yeah, we're probably past the next break already. Yeah, there's something bad with this going on. Did this freeze up? What happened? I don't know. I'm just restarting it from a certain point, and we'll have to go from there. Because it's bad. Whatever it is that happened is bad, and it shouldn't have happened. So I apologize. When we come back from the break, because we're already late for the break now because of the stupid computer. I wanted to finish up the idea about this information about Indian tribes. Because the guys over in the Dakotas, the Indian tribes out there, it seems, according to this story, drumming up big business. And they seem to be, circulating this question to other tribes to get them involved in the business of cannabis economics. To bolster their little tribes in different parts around the country. We'll examine that story in a little more detail in short order coming up next on the show.
You're getting the full melt.
Got something to hide? Cannalock offers discreet and effective storage solutions that destroy odor, so nobody knows. Cannalock is a patented charcoal-activated bag that discreetly stores your marijuana. Cannalock is made from the same material as military chemical warfare suits. Get yours at Cannalock.com. Visit Cannalock.com to learn more about no-smell technology.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
This summer, discover the one place where your family will create unforgettable memories. Welcome to Jurassic World. Welcome to Jurassic World. Welcome to Jurassic World. Welcome Welcome to Jurassic World. Rated PG-13.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
I've been counting on my steps, on my nose just turned to yes. Silently, I must confess.
So I wanted to remind you that our telephone lines are brought to you by Cannalock. You find folks at Cannalock.com. Make the no-smell bag. Cannalock.com so nobody knows. Hoping to get on the program next week. We had her scheduled last week, kind of penciled in. It didn't work out for some reason. I'm hoping to get her back this week. The chick who got her dildo, I guess, for lack of a better term. I guess you'd call it a vibrator. I think she reported it as a vibrator. Stolen by the police in Michigan. She was testifying before a, court. Or, not a court. It was really a court of people in a judiciary hearing. So it's a court of sorts, really before the legislature. Talking about bad seizures and how the police took other stuff and left her girl behind, but kept her cell phones and TVs and stuff, and among other things, her vibrator, which probably did not show up on the list of stuff that they said they took. Why would you keep her vibrator? I don't know. Got to talk to her about this. So hopefully get her on the program, restored back on later this week. Also, still searching for a comedian. If there's another 420 funny guy, I'd like to get him on the show for this Wednesday. I do not have another guy that's even identified at this point. So I had three of them. Jeremy, Jeffrey, and Ngayo. Had them on the last 3 weeks in a row. I'd like to get a fourth one of them. Perhaps visit them once a month, and kind of catch up with some of the 420 funny going around the nation. Because and maybe get them organized into a 420 funny comedy tour. That's what I want to do. Also this week, if we get the chance, because I don't know if I can reach back to them or not. I've got their phone numbers and stuff, but I haven't tried to talk to them since we've had them on the program. Brian and Caitlin from the CNN series High Profits. The last episode just aired yesterday, and I don't know if you caught the show or not, but they had to move. They moved. The big ending to that was the local city council, the town council in Breckenridge, put the voters' initiative up. They said they did the same thing the Michigan legislature did with that stupid we need to fix the roads thing, raise your sales tax or not. And the Michigan voters said no. In Ohio, or I'm sorry, in Breckenridge, Colorado, the town council there said, we don't want to take this on our own. We'll rather let the people say what it's going to be, so we're going to put a special election up. Record turnout for any election ever in Breckenridge. And it was a resounding no mainstream pot on Main Street. Got to go out to Airport Road. So they ended up moving, and all the business surrounding that move. And so I want to check back with Brian and Caitlin and get an update from them about, because they couldn't talk about. We had them on before the series even aired, before even the first episode aired, wrapped around this big money concept. And it turns out in the end that they had to move, and maybe their business was impacted from an economic standpoint. The series didn't really define that. They just kind of left it up to speculation and, observation that that's probably where this was going. It seemed that Brian, at least, was resigned to the idea that he's going to have to be competing down there with other people. It seems also then this last episode, it was revealed, and I don't think I'm getting, if you haven't seen it, I hope I'm not giving you a spoiler, because I think it is available on demand through CNN. That they left their old store open, which is really amazing to me because they've always complained about the rents being so high there that they had to pay these high rents at this store, and these other stores failed and then moved out to Airport Road where the rents were cheaper, and they had to fight with the town council to stay there. That they left this store open, not selling marijuana anymore, but more open as a head shop, and a great opportunity for the people on Main Street to go into their head shop and get handed a card saying, hey, we're only a couple miles down the road. Come on down, and we're going to give you a 10% discount for coming down to see our recreational pot shop down on Airport Road, 2 miles from downtown. Come on out and see us. And Brian's idea is, if you're going to have to come out to Airport Road to get, marijuana at one of these retail shops, if you've got a 10% discount in your hand, why would you go to the other shops? I would say to shop around and see if your 10% discount matters. That's what I would say. But he's relying on that, and I'd like to check back with him on that, because it seems like in December or early January they had to make that move. It probably didn't get the move made until January. We talked to them in late March or early April. I think it was early April. We talked to them in early April. And, then the series went on. So it would be nice to see what happened to them and get some reflection about those camera crews following them around, how that impacted their life. And, when we talked to them before, they weren't famous yet. They hadn't been on TV. Now they've been on TV on the big silver screen, following them all over this, country. I wonder what kind of recognition they're getting. And also, has their, this public opinion on them changed, given the story portrayed on the reality show? Very interesting subject. I'd love to have them back on the program, trying to get that done for you this week. So those are just program notes. Moving on to this thing, and I'm hoping this thing will, I had to plug the iPhone in because it was about to die on me not very long ago. In fact, it says there is currently 1% battery left. And I got to get through this quickly because it may die on me while I'm doing it. I'm reading this story from the iPhone. So this is about the tribes. And I just hope it gets over there without dying on me, because I've got the phone plugged in, but for some reason it is not recognizing its charging source. Marijuana companies in California and Colorado have been tabbed. Prominent American Indian have tapped. It says tabbed, but I think they meant tapped. Have tapped prominent American Indian leaders from the Dakotas to help prod tribes across the nation into the pot business. Tex Hall, the former chairman of the oil-rich 3 affiliated tribes, and Robert Shepard, former chairman of the one of these other, I can't even pronounce it, Indian tribes in northeastern South Dakota and southeastern North Dakota, are trying to recruit and assist tribes in producing high-grade marijuana products. Those who will want to get in early are those who will really succeed, said Shepard, the tribal relations officer for the Denver-based Monarch America Incorporated. With 566 federally recognized Indian tribes in the United States, the potential revenue from marijuana business is big, even though many native leaders remain skeptical, says Shepard. Elders especially are wary. It's hard to deny the medical properties in cannabis, Shepard says, but the federal government has done a good job of portraying it as a horrible drug. There's going to be a huge educational period for tribes, and this is true of this subject nationwide. The prospect of pot on tribal land is made possible by a U.S. Justice Department decision I mentioned earlier in December that allows Indian tribes, which are considered sovereign nations, to grow and sell marijuana on their lands as long as they follow the same federal conditions laid out for states that have legalized the drug. Hall, the former chairman of the Mandan, I can't even pronounce, there's 3 tribes, in the heart of North Dakota's booming oil patch, and Tim Wright, president of Redding, California-based Wright Family Organics, LLC, announced this month that they formed a partnership to provide cultivation, manufacturing, dispensing, processing, testing, and regulatory support for tribes interested in marijuana businesses on reservations. You're going to see this, folks. If you've got an Indian reservation in your state, and you do, chances are you'll be able to go and buy retail cannabis in one of these places. Many of these places, likely, according to the story. You're going to have to stay there to consume it. You probably can't take it off the tribal lands or you get arrested by the local authorities. But this is what's going to happen. You're going to have resorts in tribal lands just like casinos that are surrounding marijuana. Probably not as money-rich or as populated as the casinos are, but we'll see what happens, because until you spark that fire, you won't know how big the flame gets, will you? Hall has the power of influence. He's a wonderful leader and a wonderful spokesperson, Wright said. Hall did not return repeated telephone calls seeking comment. Throughout my career, I have fought for the advancement and sovereignty of Indian tribes, Hall said in a statement, and a lot of that time was focused on economic development because that is what our people need and deserve, and they're right. Hall is a 3-time chairman of the 3 affiliated tribes for the Fort Berthold Reservation, which accounts for about a third of the 1.1 million barrels of oil produced daily in North Dakota. He was defeated in the tribal primary last year after increased criticism from tribal members over his personal business dealings, alleged conflicts of interest, how his administration spent money earned from oil, and a lack of transparency in government. Money from the marijuana enterprises, which backers believe could dwarf tribal gambling revenue in time, can be funneled back into the tribes to address shrinking federal grant dollars, much of which is needed for substance abuse programs in Indian country, Shepard said. Wright and Shepard said their companies have yet to ink any deals with tribes. A few other Native Americans are also attempting to get tribes into the marijuana business, but Shepard said he and Hall are likely the only ones who've held national-level posts with Indian organizations. Shepard is a former secretary of the National Congress of American Indians, and Hall has served 2 terms as president of the group that bills itself as the oldest, largest, and most representative American Indian and Alaskan Native organizations. Nobody's put together a package yet to get that money without a downside, he said. In a way, I'm proud the tribes are thinking about this, but I hope everybody has moral concerns. If I were a tribal chairman, I wouldn't do it. I might mean losing the next election. It might be losing the next election. Think about that until the next time we meet on The Full Melt Show.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.